So we have here a lineup of the leading concessionaires on cruise retail, and I think it'd be a good idea to get an idea of their position in the market and their sort of strategic priorities for the year ahead. So I'd like to ask, I guess this way around, Chris, would you like to highlight Harding Plus and your current state of operations?
Sure. I think your slides summarise it quite nicely. I think the industry is in fine fettle. The future growth predictions are between sort of 7 and 9%, which makes it a unique market in consumer globally. For us, in terms of the industry, and I'm relatively new to the industry, so I'm only 8 months into the industry, so it's nice to meet many of you over the next couple of days. It is an interesting industry because it's wonderfully complex, but also highly collaborative as well. And I think that makes us also quite unique in terms of the cruise retail industry. For Harding, our focus has been, last year was a huge year of growth for us. So we grew to over 90 ships in 1 year, over 350 shops. And in that process, it's fair to say we had some growing pains last year. It wasn't the easiest of years for us in Harding. But that period is now over, and we're now in a good financial position. We're financially robust and strong. We're making money. We're now starting to see strong like-for-like growth coming through from our ships, and that's really exciting. It also now means that we can invest quite substantially inside the business, and that's what we've been focusing on over the last 6 months. So for us, that internal investment means that we can now relentlessly focus on customers and the changing dynamic that we're seeing across all cruise line retail. And that's quite an exciting phase for us because I think the relentless focus on customers is our key focus over the next 2-3 years, following that rapid growth from last year. So we're in a good position, really excited to be seeing like-for-like growth across our ships, in a strong financial position now, and that's allowing this substantial investment that we've got back into the business, and it's quite an exciting period for us to be in Harding.
Great. Can you tell us about the cruise line partners that you're working with, how many ships you're on?
Yeah, most of them are here, so I will be incredibly polite. No, but generously, it's a wondrous cooperation. We're across 14 different cruise lines. We have over 90 ships, over 350 individual shops. So it's quite a complex operation on a global basis, but quite an exciting one as well, because it means we cater for such a huge variety of different ships, shops, and customers. And that's one of the things that makes Harding such an exciting place to be.
Great, thank you, Chris. Gian, tell us about Avolta and your operations in cruise.
Hi, Kapila. Thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here with all this amazing panel. In the case of Avolta, as you know, is a global player, and DFNI Cruise Services, that is part of this company, is a small piece. But I've always explained to DFNI and to Avolta that I think it's an amazing channel, very dynamic, with a lot of challenges, as Chris said, where you have to operate at a really good level if you want to be profitable. So we had a strategy after pandemic to focus on one partner, which is Norwegian Cruise Line, and I think it was based on the fact that we wanted to achieve collaboration, transparency, joint decision making, and what was very important for us was a long-term contract and a long-term agreement. So basically, that's where we are now. We are operating 18 ships in Norwegian. We took another 4 at the beginning of this year, and we are preparing now for the Aqua that is coming up next year at the beginning of 2025, and the other 3 classes. And that's basically where we are now in the industry. So we are operating 18 ships with Norwegian Cruise Line.
Thank you, Gian. Okay, Lisa, tell us about Starboard, obviously one of the oldest players in cruise retail.
We're old, but we're still very relevant and constantly reinventing ourselves. And it's been a fantastic year for Starboard. So right now we've got our 14 cruise line partners. One of the things that we feel is a point of differentiation for Starboard is we have the partnership with Onboard Media, our sister company. So when we are together, we are a very powerful team that is all about, really getting in front of guests and really driving sales and marketing engagement to help the stores and help the guests have a great shopping experience. So the sister company of Onboard Media is a big point of differentiation. The other thing that we have really focused on heavily, we started it before the pandemic, but of course we were interrupted, was our account team orientation. Yes, we're with 14 cruise lines, but we work very hard organizationally to give each cruise line kind of a dedicated team of resources that cuts across product, marketing, onboard, visual merchandising, events, everything that kind of really can dig into what makes that cruise line unique. So that's been a very successful organizing strategy for us that we continue to see the fruits of. And then the other thing I would say that has been a big focus of us, and it's a priority stated in our strategies, is the idea of retail transformation and all that comes along with that. So everything about how we curate, how we show up, what does that guest see when they come into the store, so that's not just category-driven merchandising, but really a lifestyle presentation has been a huge area of focus for us. The other thing I think that's big for this year is the relaunch of China. So we saw it's been the toughest market and the slowest to come back, but we do have partners in the region. And as we speak, we're launching on Blue Dream Melody, which is a Chinese cruise line, and we're all watching that space very carefully to see how it all restarts, but we're excited.
Brilliant. Definitely come back to some of those points later. Jennifer, tell us about Effy Jewelry.
So it's also been a tremendous year for us as well, and I'm very happy to be back up here on this stage with everyone here. Thank you for the invitation. We have 125 jewelry boutiques across 7 major cruise brands. We have a shopping media company called HFGM, which we are 3 major cruise brands. We have 25 shops in the ports of call. Effy Jewelry shops in ports of call in Alaska and Caribbean, and we're just about to step into the general concession space.
Thank you. Sorry. I think there's a little bit of feedback. I'm not sure, but it was my mic. Okay, and Nicolas, tell us about Botteri Heinemann and your division, Heinemann Americas, and your efforts in cruise.
Good morning, first of all. So on a global scale as Botteri Heinemann, we are a retailer and a distributor. So we run retail on 19 vessels globally, and we deliver our products to more than 200 vessels on a global scale. For us, Heinemann Americas, we're currently operating 4 vessels with Royal Caribbean, and the 5th to be launched just about in 4 weeks from now, which is Utopia of the Sea, so very exciting times. Another exciting item is what you already mentioned, the Arroya, the ship in Saudi Arabia, which is just fantastic that we can step into that market as well. Strategically, as we do this in all channels, not just cruising, is about diversification. So we always need that strong footprint in retail, but as well in distribution. And that's where you're going to see some growth definitely happening. We're super proud that at the beginning of the year we started to supply a Norwegian cruise line with the entire Bacardi portfolio, and as well with Titus vodka. Thanks for the drinks, by the way, yesterday. And that's a great add to our portfolio. So we literally want to play in all areas that the cruise lines can offer, and that's retail, distribution. Part of this is F&B, but as well supplying to our dear customers that run their own retail stores. So yeah, we as well are very happy where we are, and we strive to work more and more closely with our international teams. So really provide the same service in all regions all over the globe.
Fabulous. So very different sort of organisations and setups from each of you. So we'll all going to have a very different perspective, geographically, etc. So lots to talk about. So I'm just going to throw some questions out there, and please feel free to answer as you see fit. So first of all, the emerging trends to set the scene. What are the emerging trends that you've identified as the major opportunities for growth and innovation in cruise retail in the current landscape? And anybody would like to take that question first?
Sure. So one thing that we recently launched on a ship was a artificial intelligence augmented reality beauty solution called SkinSight. And we're very excited by it. We did launch it first on Jubilee, coming soon to more ships around the world. But I think the interesting thing is, so artificial intelligence, clearly it's in the news every other minute. And what will be interesting to see is we're excited by the guest-facing opportunities in terms of recommendations and things that enhance the guest experience. But we also are excited about the behind-the-scenes kind of planning merchandising and planning and inventory management, supply chain management. We're very excited with all of those capabilities. So if it can help us on all aspects, it'll be good for all of our business.
Mm-hmm. Very, very topical at the moment. Chris, you had something to...
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I was looking through the notes of the prior conference, and I think that the emerging trends that we're seeing through, I think data's been spoken about it before on DFNI conferences. And I think it's we're seeing a real pivot now with some of our cruise line partners and their ability to provide meaningful data to us almost real time. And that's changing quite fundamentally how we look at our own business and how we look at satisfying customers. And it's something that the industry's been speaking about, I think, for a number of years, but actually now it's really happening. So if you give an example, we're now able to see on one of the ships that we've got, we were seeing sales sort of lackluster for a while. And the cruise line partners are able now to give us high quality data. We can now understand on that particular ship, for example, new to cruise, has grown by 30% of all passengers this year versus last year is new to cruise. And that changes our dynamics. It's not about product selection, it's more about marketing, how we train customers on what cruise retail is all about, how we do events, how we do various things. And that demographic shift that we're seeing across a number of cruise lines, the data we're now getting through, and it's not across all of our cruise line partners, it really can be quite meaningful because we're able to see demographic shifts. We're able to create bespoke ranges now by using a new intelligent system that we have inside Harding that uses sort of machine-based learning. We're able to bespoke ranges per ship, per shop, and do it in an automated way, which means we can then use our people to then curate the best products. And it really has led to a shift change in some of our best ships. And I think that quality of data, I think, is going to be imperative in how we go forward over the next couple of years because it just takes subjectivity out of it and allows us to give a really bespoke and individualized response to all customers.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Gian and Nicolas, both working for companies that also operate in airport retail, etc., which we all know to have had challenges in the data sharing sort of area, especially from, it's hard to see who owns the passenger in that environment. But here it's very...
Yeah, so I mean, it's very encouraging what Chris is saying because I feel that the data exchange is pretty limited. The challenges that we have, it already starts with the POS. If you don't have your own POS on hand on the cruise lines, then it's really, really difficult. You have a delay of the time. Compared to the airport business, there's currently much more data that we collect. So, for example, if you talk about the heat maps, if you talk about the penetration in specific spaces, that's data that we don't really get from the cruise lines so far. And I think this would give us like a lot of insights so we could really tailor, as you say, Chris, the assortment to the consumer. So I think there's still a lot of potential out there to exchange data and to collect data. But therefore, we need to be much more integrated into the IT structure of the cruise lines. And there needs to be a flawless, immediate interchange of data. At least where we're operating, this is not the case. And where we operated before as well, we saw some struggles. So for our own business, I would say in airports, we are on a much more elevated space when it comes to data sharing. But I think we know how we could get there in the cruise industry as well.
Yes, in the case of Avolta, we are a data-driven company, and we are one of the key pillars of the company right now is to continue to increase our data about customers, and I think we have, in our case, we have 3 levels. I would say you have the global data, the local that we have, in this case, from our customers on board the ships, and also the data that NCL shares with us. So definitely data is really important so that we can continue to implement different actions and we cater our assortment and our experiences based on that. I think cruise is something that is special, and when you compare with other channels, is that you have a multi-generational customer. So you have to be able to tailor your offer to all of them. So data is definitely very important for us. And in the case of Avolta, we're working really hard on a very strong database and for the loyalty program too.
Fabulous. So before we got onto the subject of data, we were talking about the emerging trends. Is there anything else that you'd like to contribute in terms of how passenger demographics are changing, etc.? Jennifer, we haven't heard from you.
I mean, passenger demographics definitely changing, multi-generational, getting used to, Gen Z and even millennials as millennials are flocking more towards cruises where they used to be like, no, that's for my parents, my grandparents. Now they're starting to come on, so that's interesting. What is an interesting shift is, although customer experience and interaction is a huge part of everything that we do, we also have to acknowledge that with, Amazon and online shopping, there are people that are coming on cruises that don't necessarily want to interact. So that's why we've come up with technology. Interesting that you said about the AI. We're doing a similar thing. It's a try-on kiosk. So they can come and they put their hand and they can try different rings, and then they can email themselves. There's a message sent to the Effy store on board if they want to interact, but at least they get to do some of the interaction on their own, and we'll be expanding that. Now we do rings, and we'll do necklaces, earrings, everything, and continue on that.
Great.
Kapila, from our side, or from my side, what surprised me most was the development in the logo category. So in the past year, maybe averaging like $1.50, but we now see, especially on the new ships, on the big ships, that the ask for, the demand for the logo collections is crazy. On Icon, we are averaging far above $3 only in that category. So we decided on the Utopia as well to expand that space. So just it tells me like how strong the cruise brands are, right? So I think our task as a retailer is to just support that, right? So I mean, we don't show up as Heinemann, and you guys don't really show up as besides Effy. So we need to serve the brand, the Royal Caribbean brand in this case, and the logo category is like a significant building block of that. So that really surprised us, and we had to react quite quickly. So the assortment expands and the spaces as well. So that was quite a trend I wasn't expecting.
Okay. Is anybody else seeing that sort of trend in terms of specific categories?
Go ahead, Chris.
What we are doing now, and including in all our commercial plans, is, as Nicolas said, and Jennifer also, is how you can include experiences in the travel retail section in terms of, for example, a perfume finder, or a whiskey finder. So we are trying to bring more digitalization into the stores so that the customer can interact on that sense. Besides, as we all know, growing the category that is linked to sustainability and sustainability products and packaging and all that, I think it's also another trend, for example.
Okay.
To build on what you're saying originally about kind of the digitalization, the other thing I'm sure everybody's seeing is the TikTok effect is insane. And so one of the things that we've been observing, and it's been great, is when we're trying to be fast on our feet and bring in some of the, particularly in beauty, skincare in that area, bring in those brands that are emerging strong on social. And where we introduce them, we call it out from a visual merchandising standpoint. And it's driven meaningful, like measurable, increased traffic into the beauty space from a younger customer that didn't always sort of enter the shop. So that's been very exciting to see. So I think you got to be fast because they come and go, these trends. But where it's meaningful, we're seeing the measurable impact on the business.
So with these sort of hot trends of the moment, do you find that you're having to change it up a lot in terms of the assortment?
You have to be fast.
Yeah. Okay. If that's everything in terms of trends from you guys, we'll flip it over and talk about the challenges, I guess. So, what are the key challenges that we're going through right now in cruise retail that affects retailers, that affects brands? I think, Gian, would you like to start there?
I would say there's plenty, but when you have a challenge, you also have an opportunity. So I think in the cruise industry, if we start from talent and talent acquisition, I think it's a subject that is very important for us. We have just because of the nature of the business, we have a turnover of our teams. So we have to be constantly training them, and we have to find ways to retain this talent. So this could be, for example, one challenge. Then we all know that from a logistics perspective, there's also many challenges. So, so you have to plan ahead in a really good way, because you have to move merchandise around the globe, and there's been, as you know, many challenges in supply chain, but that's also something that we have to check really, really close in the near future. Well, those probably are two. I can let them talk about the rest.
Do the supply chain challenges, I guess that's something that we've been hearing about over the last couple of years, so that you're telling me that they're still continuing in the current landscape?
So, and supply chain from two perspectives. On one hand, the movement of the merchandise, but on the other hand is the limited space that we have on board the ship. Okay, so usually if it's a land operation, in our case, well, we always try to analyze very well the replenishment, but you can, by any chance, receive more merchandise, and we have the space. But on board the ships, you really have to control this very well, and you have to continue replenishing the ships all the time. So I think that's it's challenging from that sense.
Okay. Nicolas, I think you always... I'm sure Heinemann has a lot to say around the logistics and side of things.
Yeah, but I would first love to touch on the point of the staffing. I clearly see this as well as the biggest challenge, right? The performance really comes with having a great team on board. And the retail manager and the leadership team is so essential. We see this once there's something wrong with the team, the PPDs drop immediately, like literally overnight. So that's really a big challenge, especially with all the cruise ships that are going to be launched over the next couple of years. How can we really have that strong leadership in place and the right stuff on board? I as well agree with the point that the assortments will change more frequently, and we need to be really reactive to that. So the challenge is here: how can we really be aligned with the brands? And I as well think that the brands need to be supportive here, because if you switch the assortments quite frequently, that means as well that you have old stock that is on shelf that doesn't sell that frequently. So we need to collaborate when it comes to selling off the goods, returning the goods. So there are definitely certain categories where we need more flexibility from the brands on that. Otherwise, we will not be able to keep up with the trends. So those would be my 2 points. And on the last one, of course, supply chain plays a role. If you want to be quick to market, yeah, you need to be rock solid in the supply chain.
I think, Jennifer, you're nodding along.
Yeah, agreeing with everything. But I think our biggest challenge is and always will be the physical space. That stores are always going to be smaller than we would like. I mean, if it was up to us, the whole ship would be retail, right? But that's not possible. So I think the challenge is how to maximize the square footage and also think outside the box physically on the ship, as well as pre-cruise, post-cruise. How can you maximize revenue given the small footprint that we're always going to have?
Does anybody else have any thoughts on?
Yeah, I think if you look at the challenges, you've got post-COVID, customers originally just wanted to shop. So expectations were the same as they were pre-COVID. But we're seeing that customer expectations are certainly rising in terms of what they expect from cruise line retail. They want more experience. It's less about just walking into and out of a shop. It's about actually driving a meaningful experience. That's easier to do when you've got a new shop. And it's very expensive to do when you've got lots of older shops. And so what we've tried to do on Queen Anne, for example, is create a seamless retail experience where it brings a real experience to things like the Cabinet of Curiosities, where customers can interact with the history of and legacy of maritime. Or on the ship, hopefully we'll get to see on Thursday in terms of Sun Princess, which, with the support of the Princess team, creates sort of retail without walls. And so you've got that real shift. But that's exciting to do on a new ship, but it can be quite difficult and expensive to do in quite constrained space on older ships. It's how do you get that experience there? I think the second challenge that gives you in rising expectations for customers of getting more experience on board is, as Gian mentioned, is what do we do with our shop-based colleagues and management? Because it means that you need to recruit a higher standard. We need to retain better. We need to invest much more in training. And when you've got such busy schedules and quite constrained space, that gives you physical limitations as well. But for myself in Harding, I think that last bit is one of the most exciting aspects for us over the next 3-4 years, is igniting the ship-based operations, igniting ship-based colleagues, really empowering our ship-based managers to give that seamless experience to customers. And that's really exciting.
Yes, absolutely.
I think to build on what we've been saying up here, and specifically to the brands that are in the room, especially brands that maybe have not had a lot of experience yet in cruise retail, it is amazing, and we're all, the biggest cheerleaders for the space, and it's not easy at the same time. And I think the themes that we're talking about that would be relevant to you all to be thinking about is training of people. It is by far one of the biggest things that you can do to add value to the relationship is to help solution the consistent and ongoing training of people. Our teams on board are on contracts. They get off the ship, they go home for months, new people are coming in constantly. So the need for training is constant. And we've all solved we've got, everything's on, mobile and virtual, but there's still a lot of room for improvement. So I would say coming with good ideas and good specific plans on training would be a very good strategy for any brand wanting to get into the space. And as Chris was saying, the experience is more important than ever. And so coming with very specific ideas of how does your brand or product come to life in a shop environment, so it's not just a product on a shelf, would be very helpful to help us all sell more of your stuff. And then storytelling. I think the shops are small, there's not a lot of room, and we need to help tell your story as compellingly as possible. So what assets do you have? How do we get that story in the hands of our people from a training standpoint and in front of the guests? We will partner with you and the cruise line to get that story told, but those three ingredients are very important for brands to be successful as you're entering the space.
Lisa, if I can just jump on this one. I agree that the storytelling, especially through our employees, is extremely important for the brands. With the entertaining factor, I struggle a little bit because we always try to compete against everything that's going on the vessels, and what the cruise lines are doing in terms of entertainment is amazing. So when we have that little footprint on retailing, we try to do the same on our spaces. For me, this feels like quite often pretty crowded, and you're losing the effect, right? So I think we will go a little bit towards calming it down a little bit. So if you go into a retail store, you're like, okay, you feel at ease, you feel welcomed, you feel like, just in a better shopping mood than if everything left and right is just entertaining. So therefore, again, I think the stuff is important to sell it rather than doing permanent pop-ups everywhere and just trying to compete with the entertainment that's happening on cruise lines.
I guess that's obviously different across cruise lines. I think Royal Caribbean's a very fun cruise line with lots of entertainment, and maybe passengers are looking for a little oasis of calm when they're shopping. But you all work with different cruise lines. How does that sort of balance shift when it comes to working with different partners?
I mean, you have to create entertainment all the time. I think we are more and more into activations, more and more into events where you can interact with the customers. I mean, in this specific case of cruises, we are part of the vacations of the guest, and we have them for days, 5, a week or more. So you have to find something that you make the customer come to the store every day. So I think that's another trend, and that's why brands are so important in this case, because they will help us to create more and more of these interactions with the customers, and with the new generations, that's what they are looking for. They are also looking for digitalization, I would say online and offline interaction too. So this piece of having fun and interacting with the customers and engaging and give them something new every time, I think is very important.
Mm-hmm. Would you like to contribute to that?
Yeah, I like to say with Effy, we're not in the jewelry business, we're in the business of creating memories. And that's what we're all in that business, right? People coming on with their families and coming on a cruise, and yes, they're going to buy something, but they really want to create a memory for a lifetime. So I think it's up to us to create that memory. And also, we had talked, I think Lisa brought up social media, TikTok, creating those social media moments. I mean, social media runs our lives at this time, so we like to create Instagrammable moments, we call them. And actually, Nicolas and I worked together on the icon with the Bling store. And we have, it's on the top deck, and we have a huge throne there, and and we have a whole SOP of what happens when they buy at this Bling store. And it involves money guns and all kinds of things, but it's just creating this amazing moment for the guest.
Gian. I think maybe we should just go back to describing in a nutshell, because you've obviously all talked about why brands should be investing in cruise retail and some of the benefits there. But in a nutshell, what would you say is the crux of why brands should consider investing more in shipboard retail, and what the unique advantages the environment offers?
Happy to start. I mean, it's been interesting working with the brands, and I'll do my pitch to the brands in a second. But I think if you look at post-COVID, most of the global brands spent the first year or 2 years recovering post-COVID. Marketing investments were relatively small. Exclusives were hard to get. It was just about recovery for the last 2 years. I'm seeing a real litmus change with key global brands over the last 6 to 9 months. Maybe as the consumer market is softening shoreside, a little bit is helping a little bit in that equation, but that helps us. I think cruise retail is unique. Its future growth plans is substantial. It is the fastest growing consumer market globally, if you look at it by sector. It's an experience that offers the brands, our guests are lovely. It's a beautiful experience. You come on board to have holiday, to experience memories, to have joyous experiences. There is no other environment like it for a brand to get involved with that beautiful experience. And we've got time. Our guests have plenty of time on board to really engage meaningfully with the brand. I've seen it on some of our watch shops, for example, on our new ships. The customer will come in 4, 5, 6, 7 times over a week. There's no other environment that gives that brand that rich experience. They might not just buy 1 watch with us, but they might buy 5 watches over the next 10 years because of that deep, meaningful experience they can get on board. There really is nothing like it. And I think some of our really key global partner brands have woken up to that in the last 3 to 4 to 5 months. It really has been a change that I've seen in this 6-month period. And I think that's really exciting because it will lead to further investment back into the industry. It will lead to more exclusive products coming back into the industry. It will lead to prioritization of stock, which still in some cases is difficult to get hold of post-COVID. The supply chains are still a little disruptive. And I think the good brands are really waking up to it. And I think it's really exciting for us all.
Fabulous. Gian?
Well, I think there's many reasons why brands need to be on board. And when you have a customer with you for several days, you really have that time to explain them about the brand. And they get to know the brand. So for us, the relationship with the brands, we try to expand as much as we can. We are now doing trainings constantly to our employees so that they can transfer this knowledge and tell the story about these brands. Also the exposure that the brands get with the cruises, because you will have a cruise in Alaska that then will go to the Caribbean, or in the Caribbean that will go to the Mediterranean. So that's a brand exposure only there. And then the different demographics that you have on board the ships. So I think it's very positive, the environment for brands, from luxury brands to local brands, and to be on board.
Anyone else like to mention anything?
I think that the massive advantage is that you can really choose on which cruise line you want to be, right? The cruise lines have such different passenger profiles, the itinerary is different, the size is different, the offering is different. So as a brand, you really need to pick which ship you want to be on. I feel that some brands really just go everywhere. If it makes sense or not, that's a different question. But it's a massive opportunity throughout all those cruise lines to really pick where you want to play and invest in that area. And I feel as well that the investment that you need to take to be present on a cruise ship is rather low compared to other areas. I mean, if you take Avolta spaces or Heinemann spaces on airports, it's very expensive to play promotion there and to be part of the portfolio. So I think the cruise lines are really a great channel to tailor your offering and as well to get some good results for your money.
Mm-hmm. I would just like to say we are actually looking now for what we call discovery brands. And I think maybe something that people might not realize is that you can actually build a brand on the cruise ships that becomes an international brand. Invicta is an example. If any cruise ship you go on, you're going to see a very big presence of Invicta. And that actually started on cruise. And now they've gone on, they have mall kiosks, they're online. They actually do large group sailings, and that is a brand that started out and was built by the cruise industry, and particularly the media companies like Onboard Media and HFGM. Like, we have the ability to build these brands. There's a watch called Philip Stein, and that became very huge, and that was built on cruise also. So there could be somebody out there now that could build a huge brand just starting on cruise. It's kind of exciting.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, it's a huge success story, isn't it? So, yeah, there's an opportunity there for that.
I think I would build on that to also say that both are possible. There's a lot of discovery brands. You'll hear more later about destination and all of the unique opportunities for locally sourced, things that are unique to the different regions of the world that the cruise lines travel to. At the same time, for the global brands, I think that the message would be to help really curate the assortments. Guests come on board. This is a big post-pandemic change as well. More researched than ever. They've done their research. They're price comparing all the time. And I don't think any of us want to be in that business of being able to have the guests, with their phone and sort of comparing the price that they can get online on a brand website versus what they see on board the ship. So I think thinking about how to curate those assortments, unique travel retail, if not cruise retail, exclusives or special collections, newness, being relevant to what's happening in the market, should be important things for brands to consider.
Thank you. Talking about brands and categories specifically, we all know that jewelry and watches, obviously, a really important part of cruise. Can you tell us just a top line sort of overview of which categories are also really important on cruise lines? Any emerging trends, anything exciting going on with the passenger demographics? You've mentioned digital and social media, but in terms of the actual product categories that newer consumers are looking at, are they looking for the same as the old generation of cruisers?
I would say that no, they are not looking for the same as all generations on the cruises. Cruises and in our case, airports too. You have to bring new brands constantly, okay? And if those can be linked to sustainability and social responsibility, it's even better. So, and also in destination, as Lisa said before, destination is a very important piece of the industry where you can make a difference. In our case, for example, we use our global teams around the world to develop more destination. I think this is a category that we found some space for improvement and growth. And then when it goes to perfume and cosmetics, we've also expanding on some brands that are sustainable. I don't know, Stream to Sea, Sol de Janeiro, and Moroccan Oil, all these type of brands that can make also a difference. But you have sustainability in all the categories, so you can promote that, and that's what we do on board our stores. You have sustainability in watches too, and in liquor, and in the packaging, and in everything. So I think that's something important to highlight, because new generations are looking for that type of product too.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting you say that it's not a category per se that's really pushing sales. It's more the story behind it, or the sustainability efforts behind it, and so on. Yes. That was actually my next question, which was, how are you each responding to this increasing demand for sustainable, ethical, responsible products? And if you can share any stories with us, Nicolas?
Well, I think the whole topic is more like a company strategy that you need to implement, which goes all the way from the governance area to the DNI and the CO2 footprint, responsible supply chain. So as a company, you need to live that. As Botteri Heinemann, we have a strong plan till 2030 throughout all those areas, and we are sure we're going to be the greenest travel retailer out there until 2030. And if you really live and breathe that, and you communicate this to your partners, then it will trickle down to better assortments, right? So we need to find the partners who get your strategy, who buy into that, and we have that. One of the biggest, L'Oreal out there, for example, we're working with them on very specific product development to get a greener assortment. But I feel like the company needs to touch on this in all the different areas. It cannot just be that we go to the vendor and you say, you know what, we need green assortments. It won't work if you do not follow through with all the different areas of your own business.
I would probably add for us, and you've probably seen us talking about it, the whole vintage luxury business has exploded in the past few years. And I think that it is wonderful supporting the circular economy. It's good. Guests appreciate that. They love the status of having those branded items. So that's been a win all around. So we're very pleased with that business and how that has grown to be clearly voted upon by the guests. That's on the high end of the business, luxury, in the opening price point area. I mean, in every shop that you'd enter on one of our ships, there's an offering that has a true sustainability aspect. Some work great, some not so good. Some guests are willing to pay a premium for, some not so much. So I think it does depend on what is I don't know if it's the authenticity, but just like how does it cut through and the guests really see what that intrinsic value is. In the fashion jewelry category, there's a brand that we're carrying where each bracelet tells a story of an animal that is about conservation, and it ties beautifully to destination because there's polar bears and the right things for Alaska and the right animals for the Caribbean and more of the Med region, and it's working really well, and it's a very low price point, but the guests are responding. So it kind of has to pull, the whole piece. Great product, good value for money, great story.
And I think you guys are doing that really well in terms of meeting needs of different passenger profiles with like Stella McCartney, which is, vegan leather, and that's still, on some ships. And then you've got the pre-loved offer catering to other needs on other ships. So I think that's really
and the
fine
guests
balance.
Definitely are voting. So that's important.
Chris?
I was going to say, I think there's two different aspects to it. I think that the one that we see most visibly, which is customers' expectations in terms of environmental concerns, is now really high, and especially on board cruise ships. And so meeting with the right brands that have ethical sourcing, meeting it with minimal packaging, meeting it with pre-loved, which I agree with Elisa, is an amazing category that makes us feel quite good as well in terms of what it does for us. I think the other half of the equation, though, which I think is quite crucial to us in the industry, is what happens when no one's watching in terms of how do we engineer our supply chains, which customers don't see and they've got little interest in, and nor should they have. But actually, how do we reduce our carbon footprint by making meaningful changes to our supply chains going behind the scenes? And so one of the things that we've been looking at in Harding over the last year, if you use an example of Australia as an example, which is for our ships in Australia, it's not an easy place to hit when you've got a base in Bristol and Miami. It's geographically quite remote. If I go back a year from where we are now, 5-6% of our products were sourced locally, were sourced regionally. We're now in a position that over a third of our products are sourced through Australasia, and that number's growing quite rapidly, literally by the weeks. We'll be in a position where the majority of our products are sourced locally within the next few months. And so what we're doing is we've gone back, and it's about doing the right thing when no one's watching. This is not about PR, it's not about trying to get sort of accolades. We've gone back through literally a list of sinners of our worst 10 routes globally, of where we're taking product from a weird place to a hard place, and then re-engineered, working hand in glove with those partners about how do we get there in a more globally simple way. Now, it's not entirely altruistic, honestly. It also reduces your cost. It reduces your carbon footprint. For the brands themselves, it makes more sense for them as well. We can respond far quicker to customers. But I think that's when for me, the environmental concern or the environmental issue really hits the sweet spot, because it's great for customers, because availability is going to be better. We're able to respond far quicker to sales. It hits the sweet spot in terms of environment because it makes a dramatic reduction in carbon footprint. but it also means that we can be far more responsive as a brand to local needs. And I think that they're the two aspects for me. It's the bit we do for consumers, where I think everyone is really onto it, because that's the demands for customers now post-COVID. But the second bit is, how do you re-engineer your supply chains and make some quite tough decisions sometimes. But how do you get your carbon footprint down in more meaningful ways, which is not really for PR, it's not for external markets, but it's just the right thing to do. And that's one of the things that we're quite focused on over the next 6 to 12 months.
Absolutely, yeah. It's good to know and good to share that. Jennifer, from your point of view, as a jewelry company, tell us how you're meeting these needs.
Well, we have seen a stronger and stronger demand for lab-grown diamonds. There's no question about the sourcing, is it ethically sourced, and we have seen a shift towards that, and there are customers that are buying lab-grown diamonds for that reason. Some buy for other reasons. Also, there's also a price comparison. But interestingly, there's still quite a demand for natural diamonds, and we were wondering if that was going to cut into the natural diamond, but it hasn't. Actually, our natural diamond sales increased as our lab has increased. Also, I think, looking inside ourselves, one of the places where we saw a lot of waste was packaging and marketing, paper. We were moving people around with paper for a long, long time, and moving away from that has reduced a lot. The environment, like doing things more digitally, has helped. And even with the packaging, the guests don't even necessarily want a big jewelry box. They don't even have room for it. So when we reduced that down, it was actually a positive effect for the guests and the environment.
Fabulous, yeah. It's really interesting to see how you each are employing digital solutions and technologies in different ways, either to address sustainability or meeting the needs of some consumers who don't want that personal interaction, or etc., or trying things on and doing things in a more, I guess, safer but gamified way. Is there anything else going on from a technological, digital standpoint that you can mention? Perhaps, one of you've mentioned getting in touch with customers post cruise. Is there anything going on in that area?
In our case, and I will comment also in the next panel with NCL, but something that we are developing now is this connection with the customers, as you said before, pre, during, and post. In order to do so, we are developing a tool that can, together with NCL app, that can be seamless and omni-channel. I think it's important when you reduce the pain points to the customer. So I think that's another trend, and that's how you can start interacting with the customers even before they are on board, so that they can see the different offers that you have, the promotions that are very important, as Nicolas said. Then during their stay on board, you have to also provide them with some digitalization nowadays. And post is when you maintain that relationship. And we know that in the case of the cruises, there is a big percentage of guests that return to the cruise. So I think the post connection is very, very important, so that you keep them engaged all the time related to your offer.
I guess from your point of view, you have onboard media, you have HFGM. How can you leverage your strengths in those areas to connect with passengers?
Well, it is a huge advantage that we have, and it primarily right now is an advantage that we all leverage while the guest is on board. So I'm a firm believer, and our cruise line partners know, we talk about it endlessly, about the e-commerce opportunities are big. It's the biggest, probably the biggest commercial opportunity that we all have in front of us as we figure it out together. So whether it's just awareness building pre-cruise, that's kind of the easy part, but they're definitely getting that transaction opportunity is a big deal, and solving that, and we understand all the complexities. I think the other piece of it for brands in the room to understand is operating hours on board can be limited. And if you're a guest that's new to cruise, you may not understand why you walk down to the shops at 10 a.m. and they're closed on a port day. And so having the ability to give guests the opportunity to shop 24/7, or at least browse and pick up later, is really a huge unlock that I think we all have different solutions. The cruise lines have their own, as well, obviously, that we're all trying to fit into. So I think that is really the biggest unlock.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we definitely have a clear advantage when you have a shopping media company on board, because you have actual voice of shopping, an actual expert who can tell you where to shop, when to shop, where to go. It's a huge advantage. I also agree there, and I think the cruise lines are seeing how much they're doing pre-cruise with things like spa and and shore excursion, that there is a big opportunity out there that hopefully we can take advantage of soon.
Fabulous.
I think it gets into one of the things we talked about earlier, which is data. It hits the nail on the head of cruise line data versus cruise retail shopping data. And it's just very difficult to have that end-to-end relationship with the customer. But I agree with the panelists. I think pre-cruise is really exciting. It's a way of warming customers up before they come on board, especially for finer products. Our focus entirely at the moment is on-board ship. Using QR codes, making it as bespoke as possible, getting the interactivity there to be as good as possible. And data is still a little limited there. I mean, Lisa, I fully agree with what you said. I think that the post-cruise bit is going to be really intriguing. Having run websites, I'm probably a little bit more cynical. It's quite hard to get the volume to make that work from a profit point of view. But in terms of if we had access of that end-to-end customer journey, particularly for pre-cruise, I think it could be a crucial way of getting customers, especially now. We're in a position where we're seeing some ships where you've got 30 to 35% of customers new to cruise. That's a huge amount of customers that just don't know how to engage with the retail when they first come on board. And that pre-cruise data will be really, really useful.
I guess it's really important in terms of personalisation as well.
Yeah.
How is that currently implemented, or is it even implemented, any personalisation? Do you have that relationship with the passenger or repeat cruisers at the moment? Is anyone?
Yeah, well, if you talk about personalizations, brand personalizations, I mean, we know that the brands love to go into their own space. And at the same time, while we try to get technology and digital involved into the retail space, we're taking away space for the brands, right? And Lisa, you said that we're currently figuring things out. I think that's exactly where we are. I feel we don't have the 100% great solution how to integrate digital and this entertainment or the interaction at the POS. For example, what we implemented in terms of try-ons or like a digital spinning wheel and stuff like that, honestly, it's not that efficient. Like we have a big screen there, and you have one person standing there. Probably the transaction is maybe like a minute 30, and then they left confused and they didn't purchase anything. So if you ask our teams on board, they'd be like, "Well, take it away. Give me one shelf meter for a brand, and I can triple the revenue." So that just means that we didn't find the proper mechanism. Right? So yeah, it's a bit tricky to give the brands the space that they want and that they need in their point of view to build the brand, at the same time get those experiences and as well make these experiences efficient. So as Chris said, like the data will be so critical to really understand what works well and what does not work well in terms of the digital innovations that we have.
Thank you.
I think on the marketing side, we're doing things. We could be doing more things. In some cases, it's old school client relationship development, lead generation, whether it's shopping shows that our media partners respectively can host and then kind of interact with guests and start to identify guests that might be a great lead for a particular type of business and handing them off. That works. So that's very important to continue doing. I wouldn't say there's like a sweeping, super sophisticated level of activity from a digital standpoint. In some cases, with some of our cruise line partners, there's some targeted marketing. That's excellent. We love to do that and partner with our cruise lines on those kinds of opportunities. We try to do the personal approach as well, handwritten, signed letters and notes without cluttering the stateroom with too much stuff. But yet, it's nice to recognize guests and invite them down for special things. That's still important, especially on high-value goods, to recognize guests individually and give that personal touch. So on the marketing side, things are happening, could be more. On the experience side, we've done a lot of pilots in the past year for product personalization. That's a very exciting space. Guests love it, whether it's with embroidery or engraving and stuff like that. You're not price comparing anymore. It's something special. It's a memorable gift, all that good stuff. Our philosophy and my message to brands out there is it's helpful to do those kinds of initiatives cross-category and bigger, so there's a reason to come into the shop versus one brand one personalization experience, limited set of products, that gets tricky. So it's a good thing to partner together on, so we can find bigger ways to execute it. So you give the guests more to choose from, but it's very important part of the experience.
So I'd like to ask you a question now about competition, and it's really nice to have all of you guys sat here, you know, competitors but friendly, or sharing your ideas and so on. But who are your competitors for your passengers on board currently when it comes to that sort of distraction, or that they shop elsewhere, and how are you addressing that? So is it the port? Is it the entertainment? And what can you do to kind of encourage more shopping?
I mean, I already touched on it on Royal Caribbean. There's like so much entertainment happening that sometimes it's just difficult to physically get the people into your shops. I mean, if they run their pirate show on the main promenade, you have like 500 people standing in front of your door, and you're like, okay, I could close the doors as well. So that's definitely a big competition. But what we can do is to have those impressive employees on the shop floor to get the people in, and as well to have them coming back. As you mentioned already today, it's a big advantage to have the passengers for many days. So with our employees, we have massive potential to tie the people to our shop floor and have them coming back. So for me, that's the biggest competition on board. But of course, I mean, the port shopping is definitely a critical part. The price points and the port shopping are challenging. There are certain categories that are really impacted by the port shopping. So that's why the collaboration of all the entities that run retail on board or are involved in that is essential to try to keep as much of revenue as possible on board.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Jennifer?
I totally agree. Our competition is the ship itself, is all the entertainment that goes on. And I mean, it does come down to the people. Like, that's definitely our secret sauce. And I may be a little biased, but I think you guys are in for a real treat, because you have Aniston speaking about the power of people tomorrow. But it is, the reason that she's speaking on it is it's a subject that we're very, very passionate about. And hiring, training, we probably spend more than any company, I think, in the industry on our training and events and things like that. And because you have to have the personality to compete with everything that's going on and create a meaningful experience for the guest.
Yes. I mean, yes, all of those are competitors. Yeah, it's our job as the retailer to figure it out and to work with our cruise line partners on, we all want to win, so let's look at programming together and see what we could do to create that flow of guests experience where there's a shot at making it authentic and part of their day to do something in the shops, and we do that very well with our cruise line partners. The other piece, I guess, that hasn't yet been mentioned but will be mentioned is just online competition. I mean, it's really interesting as we restart China. In the time since pre-COVID, the proliferation of online duty-free availability in China delivered to home is exponentially increased. So and the guests are constantly comparing. So being relevant and having, again, something maybe unique that is not going to be as competitive is an important strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, partnering with a cruise line is very, very important, so that we become part of the entertainment in a way. So when it goes to our special events or the raffle that we want to do, so the cruise line can help us to drive traffic to the stores. On the different ships, you have different flow of passengers depending where the shop is located and all this. But I think besides the fact that you have all these activations and events and things going on your shop, you need to partner with a cruise line and the hotel director and everything to promote the stores and the events, to bring the traffic. So that relationship is important.
Sure.
I'd add, I think it's a really strange industry if you stand back from it, because you've got the 5 global competitors sat on the same panel. Yet we don't compete on a day-by-day basis, which is unique. Everywhere else you'd be fighting every hour for competing sales. Our fight is somewhat different. Our competition is with the port side, which is incredibly fierce in some areas, Caribbean being the one that is probably the worst at the moment in the world, and you're fighting for that dollar. And I think our job, as you've heard from the panel, is that we've got to create meaningful experiences, and that competition, I think, for customers is good. Because actually it forces us to add something else, whether that's exclusivity, whether that's better pricing, whether that's more experiential marketing on board ship, whether that's different sort of events on board ship. We should take that competition as being a good thing because it's got to make us better. And with the cruise line partners, it is exactly the same. We compete for onboard revenue, but it's our responsibility to make sure our events, our marketing just entices customers in a way. And I think for the customer, that's great news.
Mm-hmm. Talking about cruise line partners, what can you tell me about the current business model between cruise retailers and cruise lines, and how can it be improved on, in your opinion?
Who's going first?
Nicolas has a lot to say, I think.
I think we already came a long way, and we are on a good track. So I think there are more flexible business models that help us to really try out things and give us the flexibility in terms of assortments and how we show up on the stores. Things to improve for me is one, the timeline, the lead time to new builds. The retailers, if you really want to get the best out of it, that we need to be involved earlier, right? We need to have a say in, okay, where are the shops located? How are they structured? Where's the office for our members? How much locker space do we get to really maximize the revenue on board? That's essential. But as well, the longevity. If you work on contracts that are 3 years, maybe 5 years, that's okay. But this will, then you set up the stores once, and within that time frame, you will not remodel the shops. 3 to 5 years is really low. On a global scale, we at least try to target 7 years contract average, because that enables you to say, okay, you know what, this brand that we brought in does not work. Let's rip it out and let's replace it after 2 or 3 years. So that flexibility, we currently don't really have it because it's not long term enough. So I think those are things we can improve. More lead time to be involved in the retail space, and then longer contracts.
Mm-hmm. I think Gian will have a lot to say about that later.
Yes.
Yeah, but
definitely.
we'll save that. Anyone else?
I think it's one of the strengths of the industry. I think having that sometimes creative tension, again, the only one that benefits from that is the guest. And where I've looked at some of our successes over the last 6 months, it's been through phenomenal partnership with cruise line partners. You are completely aligned. You both want to have a great guest experience. You both want to make it something really special for guests. And also, you both want to make a little bit of money out of it as well. So the alignment is there. And each cruise line partner has their different personalities and different ways of working. But actually, you have got a common goal, which is beautiful. And when you do it really well, you can make beautiful things happen. And if I see some of the new ship launches we've done this year, the collaboration there goes way back. Queen Anne, that collaboration started 7 years ago. On Sun Princess, that collaboration went back 4 or 5 years ago. You end up with something you'll see on Thursday that is really beautiful, but it doesn't just happen. That happens with a partnership working over multiple years to create something quite unique and raise the bar. So I think there is always a bit of tension by the nature because it's a commercial relationship, but you've got one goal in mind, which is getting it perfect for guests, and both of you making, hopefully, a little bit of money out of it at the same time.
Fabulous.
I'd probably add that it's been really great to enjoy the increased transparency of the relationship. I think that COVID was brutal and forced a lot of hard conversation about surviving it and emerging on the other end. And I think the best part, in terms of the relationship that came out of that, was real transparency about what are the gross margins. Let's look at these categories. Where do we stand to make the most money while still offering a great guest experience, and sharing those choices about what businesses we kind of intentionally go after and what are the implications of other businesses that we love but may not be as profitable, and building that contractual relationship with just much more sharing the P&L. Here's the choices we have to make. That's been a big win.
Okay.
I think the continued openness to new ideas, not just concepts, but new ways of working, like you talked about, with maybe looking at different ways of margins or profit sharing in order to, bring certain products on board. There has to be a certain amount of flexibility, which we have seen and we continue to see, and that's exciting. And also, for us as we love when cruise lines come to us with out of the box ideas, like Holland America. They came and they're like, would you guys like to do a full ship charter? And we're like, well, we hadn't thought about it, but okay. And now we're doing a full ship, Holland America charter. So that's something that comes from the cruise lines themselves, coming, sharing their ideas with us, and then coming together to make it come to life.
Brilliant. Okay, so looking at a few forward-looking questions here, what collaborative opportunities do you see that you can bring in between the cruise line, the retailer, and the brands to enhance industry growth and tackle these common challenges collectively? Is there any sort of example that you have in mind, or a specific opportunity that you see for the industry ahead? I think Nicolas, you're smiling.
Okay. The team, they already mentioned the pre and the post. I think that's something that we need to tackle in that triangle with the cruise lines and the brands. How can we really facilitate that, especially the post cruises, and when it comes to home delivery in different markets, how can we enable that? We already execute such new things like the click and collect on board, but how can we push this to pre-cruises and to post? So this is really something that will involve a lot of data, a lot of probably as well legal discussions, and stock discussions, like from where do you ship the goods? If they are not on the vessels, can you ship them directly from your warehouse or from the vendor? So there are like multiple of items we need to figure out to really make this work. So I think this is something that will be putting us into a lot of discussions over the next couple of years.
The loyalty program piece and the digitalization, the omni-channel objective, I think that's a very important piece. But also how we can create a sense of place and how we can create unique offers. So, for example, you mentioned before the Swarovski boutique that we did on this Cape, and that's something unique. That's something that you can bring to the customers. And I think somehow we all are also trying to invest on luxury, to have our partners, the brands, to do so. And you also need the cruise line definitely to develop this type of ideas and projects. No?
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it before, but I think collaboration is crucial, and the goal for us is just to get close to the customer. We can do a phenomenal job working with the brands and with cruise line partners, and that triage has we've seen many examples over the last 6-7 months that have been really quite meaningful and have demonstrated really great commercial results as well, and great guest experiences. At the core of this is data. To get those great experiences, to pitch into the brands, to create a global partnership with one cruise line, we need good quality data so we can bespoke offers for customers. And I think that's where, I spoke earlier about the progress that's been made has been phenomenal. Even in the last 6 months, with some cruise line partners especially, the progress has been meaningful and led to really commercial results. But that's got to become deeper and more systemic now so that we can really plan ahead together. And then the partnerships with the brands and the cruise line partners are phenomenal.
And I would probably add one last point, which we've talked about. And so from the standpoint of, we don't want it to feel like we're competing for the guests while they're on board. We want it to feel truly integrated. And the cruise line partners know, because we talk about it all the time, but the more opportunities for integrated activities. One success story that we often share was with a cruise line partner that got their entertainment team to work with us on a really high quality produced fashion show. I mean, it was excellent. And it ran in the theater before the big show. So you've got, 900 people kind of captivated and hearing about a reason to go into the retail shops in a very entertaining way. And it was fun, and it was 10 minutes long. So it wasn't long, but it was meaningful. And that, it was so impactful. I mean, we literally doubled the business for the apparel and accessories as a result of that initiative. So more of that, more integrations where it's authentic and organic to the experience, but we all win, and the guest has a wonderful part of their cruise.
Thank you.
I would also just add in, it's actually going back to something you said earlier about the travel retail exclusive. I think the old message of like shop duty free, it doesn't pack the same punch it used to, when you can go on Amazon at any time, including on your cruise, and you can see that same product in Amazon. So having a product that's unique and different, particularly to cruise, I think would be a big win.
Brilliant, yeah. Okay, so I think a final question that I'd like to end with is just a forward-looking teaser or taster of what's to come from each of you? Do you have an exciting launch? Tell us about, what your plans are. Well, don't tell us too much because we're going to be talking about it in greater detail tomorrow. But perhaps, what's the opportunity in Saudi Arabia? China is growing, so have you got a new ship launch? Any exciting activations planned or refurbishments, etc.? So what can we expect to see from Harding over the next year?
What a great question. I'm trying to think of what to say and not say. But not to say this, it's quite vast. I'll give you an answer that actually might be unexpected, because I think it's less about the glitzy new ship launches or the remodeling or the dry docks that we're doing, or certainly the specifics on product launches. I'm sure the audience would love to hear, but I'm not going to give. But it's, I think for me what really excites me, and it's a really simple thing, and I spoke about at the very beginning, is re-engineering what we do with colleagues on ships and what we do with customers on board ships. And despite the marketing, I've talked about data, I've talked about the new launches and other things, that honestly, for me, is one of the most exciting things that will be going on in the business over the next 2-3 years, because that's the essence of bringing us closer to customers. That's the essence of making the experience on board ship really something exciting. It's about doing a better job, frankly, for ship-based colleagues and ship-based management. But I think that, for me, is the treasure trove. All the other stuff that we spend so much time and money on is going to be great, and it's going to lead to a great return on investment. But the bit that personally excites me is what we do on board ship, is what we do with those colleagues and what we do with those managers. And that, for me, I think is a lot of the untapped potential in what we're starting to discover.
Brilliant, thank you. I'm expecting an exclusive out of one of you. Thank you, Gian.
Well, in our case, with Norwegian, as I said, we have the opening of the Aqua that is coming. We have a big list of dry docks coming, so we have a refurbishment plan also. Different brands, boutiques and shopping shops that we are planning. So I think we have a lot of work to be done in the following months.
Thank you, Gian. What's up next for Starboard?
I was just thinking, literally in the span of 2 weeks, we are launching Blue Dream Melody in China with it. So that's a Chinese brand, purpose-built, purpose-made, or renovated, but targeted to the Chinese market. So that's really exciting to see the continued comeback of China. We are partnering with TUI Cruises on Mein Schiff 7. We just launched Silver Ray with Silver Sea with our luxury division. So the message is to, especially to the brands in the room, the industry is on fire. In a good way. There's amazing newness planned, a lot of capacity coming, great capacity, beautiful ships at every segment of the marketplace in every region of the world for every target group. It's an unbelievable time in the market. So we're very pumped up. We are looking for as many first at sea messages as possible. It's meaningful. It gives the guests something exciting, gives the cruise line something to feel excited about. Those are the biggies.
Fabulous, exciting times. Jennifer?
Well, I won't be able to give the exclusive today, but hopefully soon. But we have a lot of new ship launches. We have Utopia in a couple of weeks, which is exciting. I think on the Effy side, we are actually opening our flagship retail store right on Fifth Avenue, which we're very excited about. And it's just a block down from Saks Fifth Avenue, where I think Anderson's going to touch a little bit on the Mr. Effy story, but when he first came to America, that was the first place that he sold to was Saks Fifth Avenue, and our flagship is just catty corner. You can actually see the awning of Saks where he went underneath. It was raining, and he had went to get shelter and made his first sale there. So that's very exciting. And in terms of cruise, we're going to be bringing, it's a whole new visual concept, and we're going to be bringing that to life at sea. The Fifth Avenue, flagship Effy Fifth Avenue store concept. We're going to be bringing it to life at sea. So we're pretty excited.
And is there going to be sort of a connection to cruise from the store?
Yeah, it's going to be a connection. It's going to be look and feel. We're also going to have we're going to have obviously amazing jewelry in the Fifth Avenue store, and we're going to have the ability for cruisers to access that inventory through an app called the Vault, so they'll actually be able to buy the beautiful one-of-a-kind pieces that are in our flagship store as they cruise. So it's pretty exciting.
Brilliant. Nicolas, what's coming up?
I have a minute 20. So for Gebrüder Heinemann, so in 4 weeks we're going to launch Utopia, which is just great to launch Icon and Utopia within 6 months, super exciting. But towards the end of the year, launching Arroya in Saudi Arabia, it's just it's incredible. We are literally opening that market for with the cruise line. At the same time, we won the Jeddah airport. So that means that we have a really strong footprint. The design and the retail space, the biggest retail space at sea on Arroya, is a fantastic job from the team over there. We're going to hear probably a bit more about that. Super exciting, but you will as well see us grow in all the different channels that we have in cruises, as I mentioned at the beginning. So F&B, we just got it started. There's massive opportunity out there, but as well with our distribution customers, like in all the regions. Costa are growing in Europe, we're growing here in the States, like over there in Miami in the States as well. So over the next couple of years, just establishing those two footprints, retail and distribution, which are both equally important.
Brilliant. Great. So thank you so much. It's been a really interesting, all-encompassing conversation, and I'm really excited that you mentioned a lot of points that we're going to be discussing in further detail throughout the next 2 days. Everything from retailtainment, destination as a category, opportunities in China, in the Middle East, the power of people, and some really interesting case studies as well. And so I'd like to thank you very much, and thank you to all of our esteemed speakers, leaders of some of the biggest cruise retailers in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you.
Do you want a picture? Oh, yeah.
Ah, yes. Great, taking a picture.
Nicolas, come back. We're going to do the picture.
Right.
Gotta do the
I'll be on that.
Let's
Yeah, come up. Yeah.
Kapila, come in the middle.
I'm okay here.